Are live. Hi, everybody. This is JJ Hardy, as DB wants to call me, the coach, the owner of Victory Leadership Coaching, and we have DB, the therapist here. So this is number one of many for the Warrior Leadership podcast / live stream. And this is going to be great. Today, we're just doing introductions. But I have a little tagline here that I have to read off because it's exciting. So welcome to the weekly Warrior Leadership Chat, where coaching and therapy meet. And that's the beginning of our podcast. So today's an intro. And Derek's going to go ahead and he's going to talk a little bit about how we met, and then we're going to do the rest of this. We're gonna go into our intros.
Man, awesome. Man, thanks, JJ. Man, I appreciate that. I mean, first, I guess we'll talk about how we met, man, and then I'll just kind of go into my introduction because I think it was powerful, man. You know, you talk about synergy, talk about the Holy Spirit bringing people together, man. It was a perfect kind of connection, man. We were at the DAV Patriot Boot Camp, so we both, fly out to Kentucky, right? We go out there and we're doing our elevator pitches for our prospective businesses. Next thing you know, they're like, we're going to a lunch break or a snack or something like that. All of a sudden, this handsome young man named JJ just comes out of nowhere and beelines towards me. And I'm like, where is he going? I'm trying to figure out like what's happening. Next thing you know, he's like, were you in Balad, Iraq? And I'm like, yeah, I was there. And so immediately, we both had kind of relived the story, man, a really, honestly, a traumatic experience, really, to most. I mean, but for us, it was the norm. There was a mortar attack at one of the facilities out of one side of the dining facilities, and I was inside of the DFAC when the mortar round hit, and JJ was walking to the facility as it hit, and so we just kind of connected right there, and kind of from that moment, I hit him up after we left the DAV boot camp. And this podcast, believe it or not, the idea of it actually happened well over a year and a half ago, where we just started kind of brainstorming. I'm driving back from Mariposa County, and the phone was just going in and out, but we were sitting here formulating this master plan to get a podcast and just get together, and then here we are, right, at this place where we're really wanting to discuss the intersection between therapy and coaching. And so we just found that really there's opportunities where both of the fields can really overlap with each other. But more importantly, they overlap when you have two individuals like myself and JJ who can really collaborate and just connect. And so it's just really been awesome just planning it. And so to get to this point of actually working together and having this first introductory podcast, man, it's just an amazing ride. Wouldn't you say so, JJ?
Oh, man. The planning is fun, but the execution is amazing. This is going to be something that, over the course of time, people are going to connect with this. We just got to make it so that they can see it. So as many people that see this, that as our stories and our journeys and the things that we say start to resonate with you, make sure you share this to your respective audiences so that we can make sure this thing grows, because our main goal for the Warrior Leadership Podcast is actually, though we're talking about the intersection between leadership coaching and therapy, what we're really trying to do is bring the mindset of a warrior to the surface. And it's not just because we're both U.S. Army soldiers. No, that's not it. We may have done that, but there are so many people out there that have the same mindset, and they let all of these external factors bog them down. And if they stick to their guns, male or female, or whatever you identify as these days, you still have the mindset to be able to move forward. All you have to do is take those external objections and knock them out. You got to have the mind of a warrior.
That's right. Knock them out. And I think that's so important when you think about, both of our stories, man. And I'll just jump into mine, man, and I'll let you go ahead and take it away with yours. But I just think that, you know, I grew up in Watts, California, and most people, when they hear about Watts, California, they remember the Watts riots or the Watts rebellion. So that's where I grew up at. And so a lot of what I grew up around, to be honest with you, was really a warlike environment. Everything that I saw in Iraq was what I grew up in. I was born in. So like born in Martin Luther King Hospital, and environment was extremely dangerous just as a kid, walking to school, doing those things. And so really that environment really shaped me in a lot of ways, in terms of I had a choice. I was either going to choose the path of a warrior or a path of a gang member, to be honest with you. And the only difference between the two are their ethos. And at a very young age, man, I just remember, underneath the tree at my house on Antwerp, on 118th and Antwerp, I remember hearing this voice say, why do people do the things they do to hurt people? And so ever since then, I've been on this journey to try to discover the answer to that question. And then it's led me down this path towards, serving in the military, eventually going to school to pursue a degree in social work. And again, it was all born out of, I want to help relieve the number one, the stress and the pain that I was going through, but more importantly, to benefit not my family system, my community, and those around me, man. And so I think, when you talk about warrior ethos, it's just like you never give up. You just always move forward. And even when you fail in life or perceive failure, it's always about failing forward. And I think that message, it really resonates with people in general. I know sometimes people are reluctant to call themselves a warrior, that maybe they think, well, I didn't serve in combat, or maybe, I don't have the same, skill sets as you. But really, within each one of us, it really has to do with our character. And as we go through, these podcasts and explain to individuals what leadership is from the perspective of core values, people will start to realize that, like, wow, I actually do have those values, and I've utilized those values in my life to get through some of the most difficult hardships. And that's what makes you a warrior. And so we really want to just, help people develop that mindset so that way they can get to the next level in their life, man.
Agreed. Well, that's not the first time I've heard your story, but every time I hear it, it does inspire me, because to come from one combative environment, go through another combative environment, and then to go back into the civilian world not too far from where you started, and to succeed the way you have, you're right. That's the mind of a warrior. My background, it's different, but it's not really that different. I grew up on below the poverty line. I mean, my family always lived paycheck to paycheck. I want to start with saying, I'm not telling you my story in a way. I'm going to use certain terms that make it seem like that I'm self-deprecating or something like that. That's not the case. I'm using certain terms so it resonates with you. I want to make sure that my story sticks with you. But I started with nothing. We didn't have any money. We had humble upbringings, which usually brings out a lot of negativity. There were gangs and stuff in the neighborhood that I grew up in, and it's hard to live in that environment. You sometimes you gotta fight or be beaten. That's just kind of the way it goes. When you're below the poverty line, everything is stressful, because even though you're not the one who has to go to work to make money for that household every day, that stress bounces down all the way through everybody in the household. And I'll just say I was surrounded by negativity, and that I'm just going to leave it at that. This isn't a sob story, so I'm moving right on past that. But really, when I think of the mind of the warrior, I think of the journey after that. So, let's start with when I went to the military. The military did not make me a warrior. The people that I was surrounded with, they made me a warrior. So instead of being surrounded by negativity, I was surrounded by people that kind of reached their hand out to me, and they said, you don't have to accept all those things. Follow me. let's go. And so still continue to use that. It's like the tagline for my leadership course. As a matter of fact, I just played it right before we started talking just now. It's probably very cheesy, but I love it. No, but I had issues with confidence. I didn't feel like I had a voice. But when these people in the military that they kind of reached their hand out to me and said, "Come with me," I started having confidence in myself because they supported me. Mm-hmm. It's hard to think about. In my past, it was very difficult growing up through all of this, but it got to the point where about 4 or 5 years in to the military, I found my voice. I went from being this meek, quiet person that was actually kind of mean, and I used to fight people and everything else, to being that guy that people were like, "Hey, yeah, Sergeant Hardy's the one that we need in our corner." And I was out there marching my soldiers, hundreds of people at a time sometimes, because when you train, that's what you do. And my voice was so loud that you could hear me all the way across the parade field. It was just the most amazing thing. I didn't have that before. I was so afraid to use my voice. Sometimes when I was screaming, it sounded like I was half whispering, and it was just really awkward and weird. And I remember that, and I used to help people through that. But it wasn't the military. I want to bring that to a head. It was joining a community of supportive people that gave me that mindset of a warrior. It was the community of support. And this podcast is to bring that to the surface. And honestly speaking, DB, Derek, whatever you want to call him, what we talk about pretty often is wanting to make a community like that together. And we have, just because we have the goods doesn't mean those goods are being put to use until we put them to use. Mm-hmm. So we're going to put them to use, and we're going to make sure that people that feel like that's why it's between leadership and therapy, because leaders lead by example. So we want to bring people in, and we're going to, just like they did with me, we're going to reach out our hand, and we're going to show them the way to out of the dark. And if it's just through some coaching, because it's some minor stuff, I can help with that. But if they need a little bit more intensive, maybe they need the gears tightened up in the head, maybe they could talk to DB, or he can refer them to even some more extensive clinical stuff, because I'm sure he has a large network of that as well. There's no help at this point that we couldn't provide between the two of us or within our network. And so we're gonna hammer this out and do it.
Right. And I thank you for sharing it again. Just like my sentiments exactly in terms of like your story, man. I think as our stories continue we kind of retell them, there's always these nuances to the story, man, that you hear. And it's just like you said, you're already a warrior before you even recognize it, right? Just when you think about the resolve that we have as warriors, that ability to, no matter what's going on around us, to keep moving forward. I remember in basic training, my basic training unit, our slogan was always forward, right? And when we reconnected again, JJ, you remember, we talked about this. I grabbed your card out of my card deck, and I was like, I could hear literally clear as day. I hear the Lord say, "Call JJ, man." And then next thing you know, you're like, "Man, I got your card right here on my mic on my podcast," right? And it was perfect timing, and it again, I think it just embodies really the spirit of what we're really doing here, and in terms of this collaboration. And you mentioned something, community of support, right? Community of support is going to evolve over time, right? Some people are going to come in to the community, and some people are going to fall off, some people are going to stay, and some people will continue to grow as they come into the community. And so this space is for you to come in and out as you please. But for those that stay planted, those are the ones who are going to grow. And so if you're really about growth, if you're really about moving forward, one of the things that, I don't know if you guys realize this, but we didn't use the E word yet, but we need to say it. Both of us are entrepreneurs, which means that we're taking a big risk. And warriors take big risks because warriors understand when they take big risks, there's a big reward. But we understand that that reward is not just for the individual, it's for the individual, for their family, and then ultimately for the larger community in which they live in. And so we really are reaching out to those individuals who say, you know what, I'm tired of playing it safe and staying where I'm at, and I'm ready to move past that. And so when you're ready to get into that community support, you know, jump into it. You know, it's like kind of like, remember when I was a kid, you know, I'm kind of ashamed to say this, but I would watch people play. It was called double dutch, where they have two ropes kind of, you know, flipping at the same time. And you gotta time it perfectly, JJ, because if you time it wrong, you're gonna mess up the ropes and they're gonna yell at you, right? So I remember these, usually it'd be females. They would jump in there, man, they would get going, and those legs would be moving. But what I noticed that is when they're singing a song as you're jumping, it makes it so much easier to jump. And that's the support that we're talking about, right? It's the camaraderie that comes with when you come together as people and you connect. I think that's so important, man. Coming out of a pandemic, so many of us are still living in isolation, still believing that we have to kind of stay hidden, if you will, but it's time to start reaching out for support and connecting, and right? And I think, you know, the book that we're reading together about tribes, man, it is so amazing, man, just digging in there and reinforcing kind of what we already know, which is we're better together. But to have those points in there, and one of the points that that Seth Godin mentioned was, he said, everyone is a leader. That resonates with me. In this day and age that we live in now, this era, look, think about this. During the MySpace era, I know you probably remember MySpace, right? Did we have the ability to, you know, go online and create a podcast like what we're doing right now and literally create our own channels and our own avenues and ways of connecting?
No,
we didn't, right?
No,
and so
easily, not without paying all kinds of money.
Right. So, you know, the community of support, man, is so easy to reach out and to connect and to collaborate. But that's really what's going to get people to the next level, man. And I'll say this, I would not be in the spot that I'm in now without mentors, surrogate fathers, surrogate mothers, surrogate grandmothers, and people within the community, because our lives didn't go without loss, you know, and we would be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that as a warrior, a part of being a warrior is being able to accept the reality of loss in life, and then be able to still, when we talk about always forward again doesn't come without that loss. JJ, would you agree with that?
Yeah. And, you know, I'll take it to the next level. So going through my journey, and this is part of being a warrior. It's the only reason I'm bringing this up, but part of my journey, you know, loss, gain, everything is important. But also another important factor to that, DB, is making sure that you're not accepting what you don't believe in. If you're trying to move forward in life, and this is what bogs a lot of people down. It's what bogged me down. I was told all the time, that stuff is too hard. You can't do this. Why are you even bothering with that? You know how hard that is to do? Well, guess what? I didn't have to worry about imposter syndrome because I had imposters all around me. And I was letting them control my way of thinking. But by the time I got to the age of 17, 18, I was so angry until I was really about 21, 22 years old. I got to, you know, you transform into the type of person that you need to be to survive. Yeah. And that person that I ended up was one that didn't listen to anybody. Even when I started off in the military. So even that was a rocky road. I got in all kinds of trouble. It took people that understood my circumstances and said, hey, look, why are you so angry all the time? And I just thought about that. And I said, well, I don't know. They said, you know, nobody's trying to hurt you. But you know what? I came from an environment where people were trying to hurt me.
Right.
And so I didn't accept it. What I did accept is that people are going to try to hurt me. And so when he said that, I was like, people aren't going to try to hurt me. Okay, well, what are you trying to do? Because all you do is put me to work all the time. I was honest with him. I didn't have no respect, no parade rest, none of that stuff. You know, I have a feeling this guy was considering booting me out of the military, which is fine. But instead, he reached his hand out and he said, "Hey, look, we have some very supportive people here. And if you don't want to be angry all the time, you don't have to be. We can show you another way." And to go from angry to get to that point, and I don't even know why I started trusting. I do know why I started trusting that person. And you mentioned it at the beginning of this call. Everything comes from the good book, man. I mean, if you read it and understand it and believe it, things happen to you for a reason. That he came into my life for my development. And, you know, it just so happened that for the rest of my career until 2018, my sole purpose in life was to make everybody else's life better around me. And I wouldn't have been able to do it if I didn't have that one person that said, "Stop, think, we got you." If I wouldn't have believed him, I don't know where I would be today. But I did. My mindset changed almost instantaneously, and my attitude didn't change right away. But through the slow development, you know, he basically being told to keep an open mind and go through life a different way than I grew up doing. I found out that he was in gangs too before he went into the military. I wasn't in gangs, but he turned into the same type of person.
Right.
You have to find people that have been there and done that, got the t-shirt, ripped the t-shirt, got a new t-shirt, and reinvented themselves.
Actually, we got the collar shirts now, brother. No, man, you know what? You're hitting on some real key factors, man, when it comes to like developmental psychology. One of the things that really stuck out to me when you said the whole spirit of what you were saying was trust. And then you came to the point where you actually mentioned trust. And what's interesting is that the first stage of our life, man, is called trust versus mistrust. And that's the developmental sort of issue that we're all trying to resolve in life at that very first stage of life. And so many people that I've worked with over the years just have always struggled with trust. And it's a very difficult thing, man, for most people to overcome. And when you go back to communities of support, right? If I know that trust is essential to building human relationships, well, if I have this distrust for the world around me, I'm going to be pushing those people out. And, you know, we both know this as entrepreneurs. We have to trust other people because we can't be everything for our business in order for it to grow. We can only sustain so long as a solopreneur without the help of other people. And I really appreciate the DAV Patriot Bootcamp for bringing us together as veterans, but more importantly, as human beings, so that way we can bridge these gaps and these connections. I mean, think about how powerful that is, that they created that space for us, whereas would we have made the same connection if we were just online? We probably wouldn't. And so I think it's so important to, as we think about this podcast, it's great that you come into this space and this community, but as we begin to expand and grow and opportunities come up for individuals to come in space with us, so that way they can also communicate with their peers, you know, you really got to get connected, man. You got to, like, it's almost like this. The difference between a wired connection and a wireless connection, right? I love technology. You know, JJ, you really turning me on to some really good, you know, apps and programs like that. So I liken those apps and all the technology that we have as wireless, but there's nothing better than a wired connection, right? To be wired for sound. And so as we start to, you know, continue to grow, continue to move forward and have those offerings, you know, we really want our community, which is which is the individuals that are joining the Warrior Leadership podcast to really come into space with us as we start to offer those things out, because it's dynamic, because you're gonna meet at least one person there that you're gonna hit it off with, and that'll be the person to help you take you to the next level. I'll say this: within the matter of a little bit over 2 years of knowing JJ, man, I feel like I've known him my whole life. I remember one day we were in a planning process for the podcast, and I was getting ready to make a statement, and finished my sentence for me, man. And I was like, what the heck? It was just weird. Like, and it kind of, it wasn't, I'm saying weird, but I understand the power of connection, man. Connection is so crucial. And again, it was when he finished my sentence, I was like, man, this is like a man after my own heart. This is like my brother. Like it's an immediate brotherhood when you realize that, you know, his values are their values aligned with my values. And I want to go back to something you said that was very important. Like, you know, we both identify as a certain religion, and our beliefs sort of line up in that way. But I want to make something very clear here, is that most organized religions believe in this one rule, and that's the golden rule: treat other people the way you want to be treated. And I think if we look at what Warrior Leadership podcast is and the movement that we're creating here, that's the essence of what we're doing. Is it really remember that, you know, all people, no matter what background, creed, sexual orientation, whatever, all people have value, and all people have something to add. We live in a world that's just so divisive in terms of always trying to bring up these stratifications and these ways of identifying people, so that way you can kind of exclude them. And so I just think it's important for us to always just really judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin, not any of those other things. I mean, in the spirit of Martin Luther King's birthday yesterday, I think as a country, I think we believe in that. We believe in judging people by their character, man. And when I saw JJ the first time, I was a little bit skeptical. I'm not gonna lie to you, but the excitement that was in his eyes when he looked at me, I'm like, there's something about this guy. And so we just, again, it's just amazing that we've come to this point. I'm excited for, man, the learning the journey that me and you both have together, man. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. If it's just me and you in this community, man, I get turned up with just me and you here. So if they don't want to come, they missing out, man. Look, I'm gonna just say it like that. I'm not a salesman. I don't have a degree in sales or anything like that. I just know that, you know, when we have those early morning calls, I'm like, this fires me up. It's like, you know, I'm a ex-football player, man. And it's like when you talk about JJ the coach, man, I feel when I hear you, you know, riling the troops up, it's like, man, that's like Chuck Noll or Bill Cowher. So I guess you know what team I'm with, right? Or Mike Tomlin. I'm a Steeler fan. So it's like one of those great coaches from the best team in America riling the troops up. And I'm like, let's go. It's almost like the great Colonel Hal Moore and We Were Soldiers when he fired the troops up. So when JJ starts going and he starts coaching, I'm like, let's go. Let's get it. And it ignites fire in you to go get it done. And I think that when we think about this intersection between coaching and therapy, though, sometimes we get that fire lit, but sometimes there's something else on the inside of us that's there to put the fire out. And that's where therapy comes in at. But I'm telling you, man, when we're able to kind of work together and figure out what is it, like, is it the spark? It's kind of like working on the car, right? When we work together, think about that. You have one mechanic working on the car. You know, what's better, one mechanic or two? How fast is that vehicle going to get fixed, man? If you got two mechanics, two brains, two different ways of looking at a problem, that car is going to get fixed a whole lot faster than if one person's sitting there trying to rack their brain. And most often, when that person gets stuck, what do? They go to a book, they go to the internet, and they try to figure out, hey, what else is there that I'm missing? That's the support. That's the collaboration. That's what we're creating here, man.
You're right. But I think even more than that, we're coming up on the 30 minutes here. So
yes, sir.
we don't want to lose our audience. We want to keep our people once they start showing up. But, when we were talking about warrior leadership, let's go ahead and talk about the warrior ethos that you mentioned earlier. And also, we can talk about, what leadership means. If you looked at the title for the live stream today, podcast, as Derek is calling it right now, it's it's spelled a little bit different. So let's start with that. LDRSHIP. It's an acronym. And by the way, we're both soldiers. So I'm a retired soldier. He's a veteran. Now he's been out in the civilian workforce a lot longer than I have. But that's leadership. And that's loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And the ethos, the warrior ethos, it's part of the soldier's creed. I will always place the mission first. I will never accept defeat. I will never quit. And I will never leave a fallen comrade. And that's what we're trying to build in a community. And when we talk about the mind of a warrior, it's the mind that you're going to do something and nothing is going to be able to stop you. And when you have a community in your corner, you're not only will it not stop you, but you're going to be able to pick up the phone or send a DM if they're across the country and say, hey, look, I'm going to go do something stupid. I want you to come with me. And you're going to have somebody that'll do it. Let's go.
Let's go. No, that was beautiful, JJ. Thank you for articulating that well, man. It's that, and we've talked about the wellness wheel. This will be the last point I'll make, man, is that you just connected 3 points of the wellness wheel right there. You connect social, spiritual, and psychological, man. You connected 3 points of the wellness wheel, right? And if you can get 3 things going together at once, that'll help. That'll build up some momentum. That'll help you succeed, help you go forward. Anything else you might be missing? A lot of people say, well, I don't have the money. Well, start with where you are. If you have a tribe and you got that spirit, that warrior ethos, and you got the right mindset, the money will come, right? Yep. Think and grow rich.
Think and grow rich.
All right.
That's a quote from that. That's not just a quote. That is actually a book. If you've never read this before, talk about changing your mindset to a warrior mindset. The very first chapter is desire. Oh yeah. Read it. Apply it. Let's go. So I think that's it. I really appreciate anybody who watches this. However, watching it is not the whole thing. As I said in the beginning of this, we need to make sure we're spreading the good word. That's what our duty is to one another, is to spread the good word. So if you see this video, this is social media. It's on YouTube. It's on LinkedIn. It's on Facebook. Depending on the platform you're on, like it, heart it, subscribe to it, repost it. But more importantly, wherever you are, put a comment down there and get a conversation going. If anything resonates with you, make sure you say something so that your audience sees it, and maybe that will also resonate with somebody else. The worst thing you could possibly do is to let something hit home with you. And it doesn't matter if it's what we're saying or what somebody else is saying, but if it hits home with you and it helps you, then chances are there's somebody else in your network that might need that same type of motivation. And let's do it. We didn't necessarily do a whole ton of that today, but I'll tell you what, this train's getting ready to take off. So once it does, hop on board, because it's not gonna be a bumpy ride. It's gonna be a very fast one, because we're going on that fast train. So I look forward to seeing all your comments and hopefully in the future getting to know all of you. DB, do you have any closing comments?
No, I'm just gonna say go Hawkeyes, man.
Okay. All righty. All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you for watching.
All right.